we ever started off a podcast by saying, like, who needs a drink? Because I feel like...
I don't think so.
Well, there's a couple of those French movies you haven't watched with me, so I guess...
Yes, on purpose.
Right. It's a new year, and it's a new... Let's just get into it. We watched Civil War, and we both have a lot of feelings about this movie. My name is Eli.
I'm Denise.
And we are Film to Table. I don't know how we're going to work in food, but you know what? I'm not even thinking about that right now. We just finished watching 2024's Alex Garland's Civil War.
Now, would you say that...
is it a horror movie? Yes.
Well, no. That you wanted to watch this movie?
Yes.
Even before... I mean,
well, okay,
so...
I guess no. To answer your question directly, no. Like, this was in theaters, and I was like, I don't want to watch that. Like, I like, and I want to kind of, I don't know, like, I kind of want to get into it a little bit because in the sense of, like, I really wish, I was thinking this as the movie, like, ended and the credits started rolling. We watched all the credits. I bet you there was an argument in this movie going like, we need to call this movie like War Photographer or The Photographer or like, why do you want to call this Civil War? Right. Like I'm sure they asked him directly. Like, yeah. I mean, because yes, this is, the premise of this movie is following war photographers in a war. It could have been any war. It didn't need to be,
it just happened to
be a civil war.
American soil, yes.
Right. In a pretty far future. And well, okay. Yeah. We'll see later this year. Yeah, no, you're right. I think, man, this movie has so much to say because it could have been called anything. They called it Civil War, but like, if it was like, it could have been called like Afghanistan, right? If it had taken place in Afghanistan, or it could have been, like whatever. Man, there's so many feelings I'm trying to process, like through.
Well, let's go back a little bit and say
what the
movie's about.
Well, yeah, but let me answer your question because you asked me and I quickly, like, my brain just spiraled. When this movie was, I remember seeing the trailer and I remember thinking like, oh man, that is crazy that they're going to make a movie like that and they're going to put it out. And at the time, with everything else kind of going on, I was just like, I don't really want to watch that movie. I don't need that. What I thought was going to be a very divisive film. Very similar to, which is funny because what was that other movie that came out that was like, I think they were going to call it like Blue versus Red and it ended up being called The Hunt.
Oh yeah. That
was like, it went through a bunch of like nonsense because they're like, oh, you're trying to make things worse in the country and because it's like, it's supposed to be like Republicans versus Democrats or, whatever. And then it turns out like that movie was not at all what that was really about.
No, it was just a fun, stupid action.
Yeah, it really was. And it's like they were almost doing that to try to...
It was like they satirized everything, right?
Exactly. And I think like they ended up going with like The Hunt or whatever. And I think it was really just... That was like marketing in its classic form, right? Of like, hey, how could you create hype and spin? In a similar way, this movie, like I was saying, was like, it could have been called anything else. And they probably were like, why can't we call it The Photographer? And so because of that, I made my assumptions too, right? Of like what I thought this movie was going to be. And the trailer, I think the trailer is true to what this movie is, but it turns out like the movie is so much more visual and deeper than the trailer. Then I don't think you could have cut a trailer that would have actually portrayed what this movie was going to be. And so yes, I did want to see it in theaters, but then I was like, at that time I was like, I don't really want that right now. Like I'm, it's probably not healthy for me to watch this movie during that point in the year. And so the answer is like, yes, I did. But then I was like, no, there are other things like that, maybe it might be too much. It's funny because it's very similar to when we went to go watch The Joker, which I've only seen once all the way through. I did not realize that movie was going to be as like, I don't know, like way more bleak than I thought it was going to be. And like, you know, I know like a lot of people try to use it as, oh, this is like where certain people in our country are headed. And that's what the Joker is like but I think in a lot of ways, right. It was a movie about like people that deal with like mental health issues or just the idea of mental health and how bad it can be. And if it's not recognized or, you know, and so like by the end of the Joker, it's like, man, that's more of a movie about like people like, I don't know, like there's lots of, you know, things about that movie. But for me walking away from it, I was just like, God, that's like, you know, what it feels like to have a panic attack or what it feels to like have a like anxiety attack or, you know what I mean? Because it's so clearly the Joker character has that. Right. And so it was very, very intense. And I remember watching that just being like, my hands were all sweaty and like I was having a reaction to it that I didn't actually realize that was happening. And this movie ended up doing the same thing by the time it was all said and done, but not at all because of the title that's very false in some ways. Like, you know, yes, it's a civil war, but
it's provocative.
Right. It's well, and to be fair to Alex Garland, like it does set a tone in your brain to go like it's about a civil war and what you're about to watch is going to be intense. Yeah. But to be fair, all war is intense. And I think we'll probably talk about it because you were kind of getting to that point a minute ago, and I'll let you like follow up on that, which is like kind of what you get out of this movie, right? Or what I guess like the thesis of this movie is. But yeah, so I guess like the premise of this movie, it's in a dystopian future. 4 journalists travel across the United States during a nationwide conflict. While trying to survive, they aim to reach the White House to interview the president before he is overthrown. And
I mean,
that's it. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you could even say less and say like it's the story of 4 war journalists covering a war in its final days of the war. You know what I mean? And that's really
still accurate.
Yeah. I mean, that could be World War II. That could be any war or any conflict that has kind of been there. But so yeah, it's starring like Kirsten Dunst. How do you I'm trying to see here. I don't have my readers.
Kaylee Spenny.
As Jesse, the let's see, Wagner. I don't know how you pronounce his last name.
Mora. I think he's Brazilian, from what I can tell.
And then like the one guy, man, I really love that one actor from Dune.
The older gentleman.
Yeah, was this Sammy, right? Stephen. I
think so.
Stephen McKinley Henderson. Man, that guy's great. There's just something about like his voice.
He's like has a certain gravitas about him.
Yeah, and so those are your 4 war journalists that are covering a conflict between 2 factions in the U.S. and
because there's a civil war.
Yeah, because there's civil war. It's in and the other reason why I also wanted to watch this is just like we've talked about like 1984 being a banger of a year for movies, and then we've said that 2024 and this movie along with a lot of the A24 stuff, because we've also been watching what's that animated show that we're watching that A24 is also putting out?
Has Been Hotel on Amazon Prime.
They're just, man, A24 is just,
it's a lot of hits this year. Honestly, they've been swinging, and a lot of it is hitting.
I'd like to think that they have, like, it's not just luck or like I hope that they have, and to give them credit, right? Like I hope they have people that are like deeply analyzing like this is going to be good, and either people don't want to take a chance on it or, you know, Civil War is too controversial. Like, you know, no one's going to want to, you know, put their stamp on that either.
It's funny. Who was it that was saying like, oh, it's crazy to be A24, whoever's running it, and be like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put out only good movies.
Oh man, the logic behind that, that's crazy. It's crazy thinking.
It's weird, right?
Yeah. But yeah, so, the the movie is extremely well shot. Like, for a movie about war photography, it's really well shot. It is extremely well acted, I think.
Is this the first time that Alex Garland has directed? Or
No.
I know he's written a bunch of stuff.
No, because he did. Didn't he do? There was the one. What was the one that I really like? It's the robot one. Didn't he direct that?
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina.
He wrote it, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember he wrote it, but yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Oh, he directed that movie Men. Yeah, he directed.
Okay.
Ex Machina, Annihilation. He was directing that Devs TV show.
Oh, I did watch that.
I wanted to watch that.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's a lot of these same actors.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then he did that movie Men and Civil War. So yeah, he hasn't directed too much. And I remember after, like, on the press tour, he was saying after this movie, he was like, I'm not directing anymore after this.
I remember hearing that this was a really tough job for him for some reason. Maybe I think it was also the biggest budget that he's ever done for a movie. So I know it was especially challenging for him.
Yeah.
Because I think maybe there were more hands in the pot or something.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Well, and I think also, like, the way that people were, again, making assumptions about the movie before the movie came out. And he's like, what has happened to art? You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like having a piece that you've painted called, like, Dying Child. And, like, it maybe it's like the picture of, like, a balloon popping or something, right? It's very, like, you're supposed to think about it. You're supposed to think about it. You whatever, right? And, like, I think he was, you know, because it's art, you know, and I feel like he felt that Civil War, just like anything else, which I think is a great piece of art. I want to say it was something like that where he was just kind of upset about.
I think it was a lot of the online discourse of, like, assuming one thing or expecting one thing, etc.
Which, I mean, yeah, and that's unfortunately
fair. Honestly, kind of fair on both accounts, but I totally get where he's coming from.
Oh, absolutely, right. Like, it's just, you know, and you and I are guilty of doing that from time to time.
Oh, totally.
Of, like, you know, we're not gonna go eat at this restaurant or that thing or whatever because we put our own label on it based on what we think and want it to be, and then we, you know, have to be adults about it and be like, you know what, we're wrong, or we should have known better and given it the respect, you know, that something deserves before you make assumptions. And I feel like that was a big part of this movie.
Well, it's kind of funny because I don't know that I actually wanted to see this movie either way. I don't know. There's just war movies are really hard for me to watch to begin with, and which is funny because a lot of them are some of the best movies that I've ever seen. You know, I mean, Saving Private Ryan, all that stuff. I feel like are really powerful, necessary movies, but it's really hard for me to watch them because
it's a terrible subject.
It's horrible, and there's a small part of me that feels like even the best of them, and even showing the true to life stories, I think there's still a small piece of it that's propaganda, right?
Obviously, because there's always one side.
Here's how heroic it is, and here's how noble and the sacrifice, etc. Which is not. I'm not saying that's not, that's not a thing when you're a service member, but like, it does paint it in a certain way,
right?
You know what I mean? That
absolutely.
Oh, well, it's horrible, but you're doing it for your country, for your buddies, blah, blah, blah. And kind of almost sidelines the point of, like,
why were we even having to do this to begin with?
War is harrowing. Yeah.
Right.
And it's horrible, and it should never be necessary. It should, obviously, you would like to think it's the very last resort, but, heads of state seem to not care one way or the other. So for me, it's a really... and I don't shy away from war movies necessarily. It's just for me, it's really hard for me to watch them. And so this one, I knew he had something to say about this movie. I do really like Alex Garland, but I wasn't. It's like, he has something to say about politics or war, and I'm just not super interested in it. So when you suggested we watch it tonight, just kind of round out the year and see most of what 2024 had put out that we missed.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't super excited to watch this.
No, I hear you too. I wasn't necessarily. It's funny because I wasn't super excited, but I was like, you know what? Like, I need to put on my big boy pants and I don't want to say face my fears, but like sometimes you need good art or you need something to remind you, you know, in some way, whether it's important what people have to say. And I think when you have artists like Alex Garland or anybody who, you know, it takes the craft seriously and really went into the movie saying like, I have something to say about war.
Yeah.
And I think I know how to tell it the way I want to tell it. Is very impact. It was very impactful to me. Like
it really is it really you really gotta respect A24 even more than anything else, because it's like they really had the balls to release this in the political climate that we had, with the kind of attitude that we have towards veterans and service members, and they really put this out there and put it, you know, on a pretty wide scale as far as theater release. It sounded like it did pretty well in the theaters, despite a lot of the controversy behind it. So yeah, it's actually kind of stunning that this movie even got made. You know what I mean?
And I feel like the biggest maybe message that I got out of this movie, by the way it ended, you know, and some people everybody's going to have like their thoughts on like, you know, what the message was or whatever, but this is probably the most anti-war movie I've ever seen.
100%.
Like, and I thought, God damn, that's a great way to have put this, because nobody's really done it the way that he portrayed this movie. So, I don't know if we'll talk about food at the end, but I'm just going to say from this point going forward, we're probably going to spoil the movie. It's been a minute since it's out. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely a high recommend, but
it's on streaming now. It's easy to find.
Yeah. But I would say go in with the mindset of try to have a very open mind about a lot of things. Not like, I guess it's very easy to say this movie is not a Republican versus Democrat movie at all.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. And I think also this movie is not a pro either anything. This movie is 100% war is terrible movie.
Yeah.
Like, and that's effectively it. And so you have to be in the mindset before you watch this movie of like, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like doing something that's going to be very tough for the first, like speaking in front of a large audience or something, right? Like you got to really get your head in the right space. You have to put down your phone. You have to maybe get your fidget gadget, you know, to keep with you because you're going to need it. Because it definitely helped me. I needed my fidget gadget. It was like I was spinning the crap out of this thing. But I think partly because it was very intense. Yeah. You know, it was as intense of anything I've seen in a long while. So, yeah, this point going forward, it's spoilers. Spoilers, the Americans win.
Yeah,
womp, womp.
Sure.
Yeah. So what I kind of want to say, and you were kind of saying this a little bit earlier, of like what this movie is trying to say. Like I was saying just a minute ago, it didn't really just like sink in until the very end, especially the last shot of the film that rolls with the credits of like, wow, this is an anti-war movie. Like, it is such an anti-war movie because never have we seen war, like you were saying, through the frame of a camera. And there are no good sides. There is no good guy and there is no bad guy in this situation, even though we can easily say, I mean, in terms of, there are good and bad people in the movie, but I'm saying like in terms of like the war, a war as big as a civil war, this movie is telling you like that none of that matters. The fact that we even got to this point just shows the worst of humanity. Yeah. And these people are here to document it, and every time they'd show pictures from both sides, because they show them on both sides of like the firing line effectively. the images tell the same story.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's like none of this matters because we've already reached the point of this happening.
Yeah.
And so there are no good guys and there are no bad guys. Like, war is terrible.
Yeah.
And through the lens of a camera photographer, they are showing you, like, it's almost like trying to put the mirror back. Like, look at what you're doing. Like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Like
everybody's doing shitty things. People on both sides are dying horribly.
Right.
Everybody's acting really badly.
Right.
So it's let's we haven't even really talked about
right. Let's kind of run through it because there's one scene in particular that I don't want to miss out on because I think that's where the movie's like the movie sort of almost looks right into the camera and says, "Bro, this is what I'm telling you."
Yeah.
And this is what this movie is about. So yeah, the movie starts with Nick Offerman basically just president talking about. I mean, I think it's clear, and you know, this our podcast and our beliefs and whatever. Like, you know, it is what it is. Like, we're not trying to get anybody to think one way or another or whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna put all that out. Like this, we're here to talk about movies and art and things like that. So if I'm saying whatever and you disagree, well, sorry. Yeah,
there's plenty of space for other podcasts.
Go. Just turn it off here and whatnot. But so Nick Offerman, who's playing a character that's very Trump-like, starts the movie with a like. Well,
even that assumption is not necessarily. I don't know. It's funny because that kind of shows our bias too, because it's not referencing.
It's not referenced in any way.
It just happens to be it's a president.
He's the acting president.
He's the president of the United States
in his third term.
So he hasn't stepped down.
Right.
And there's this political climate in which people want him out of there, and it's gotten so polarized that states have broken into factions to effectively take him down.
Right, to remove him as president.
It's certain states and certain powers right up against DC.
Right,
basically.
But the movie starts with the president effectively saying, "Oh, we've won this war.
Yeah, we're totally going to win.
Nothing's going to happen to me, and they need to. Basically, those other guys need to step down." So the movie starts with like news, actually. Like you're watching a press conference that he's putting out, basically saying like, Americans need to not worry. We'll take you back in. We're on the verge of winning this war.
Yeah.
Everything's cool. And then the movie sort of starts and kicks off. And what we quickly realize is that is not what is happening. Because these news reporters, or not news reporters, they who do they?
Reuters.
Reuters, that's right. So these, I guess he's the writer who's
Wagner.
Yeah, Wagner. What was his character's name? Lee. Or no. Lee is.
He's Kirsten Dunst, I think.
Right. But
Joel.
Joel, that's right. Joel is
the writer, and Lee played by Kirsten Dunst is the photographer.
Right.
And they're both super, veterans in wartime.
Right.
Kirsten Dunst is kind of
very
legendary.
Hardened.
Yeah, as far as like she's the war photographer.
Right. So the movie starts with them. Actually, I kind of forget. Wait, the movie sort of starts with them.
They're in New York.
Oh, that's right.
And there's civil unrest going on, and you're not entirely sure who's fighting who. It's chaotic in certain zones of New York, so they're covering along with a whole bunch of other journalists.
Oh, that's right. There's like a military group or somebody that basically they're trying to deliver supplies to, I guess, a group within, I guess, the zone that they're in. And so rioting is breaking out because I think they're bringing water.
Oh, and I didn't even get that.
Yeah, they're bringing water, and then like it's being rationed. So like people are trying to get to the water, and then there's like these military type people that are backing everybody off.
Yeah.
And so Lee is photographing like the events that are happening and sort of whatever. And then I guess you also get this sense of how everybody is portraying the imagery of what is happening, because there's like a bunch of other like photographers and people that are not probably like real war photographers. They're just people with cameras, and they're just capturing the events of what's happening, which I think also speaks a little bit to like the sort of one-sidedness, right? Because those people are, you don't know their backgrounds, and they're not really asking or whatever. But what we learn of Lee and Joel is like they're there to just tell the story, and more so Lee is very battle hardened right from the get-go, where Joel clearly has one side. He's more on the side of what they're calling, I guess, the Western Front.
Yes.
Which is like Texas and California.
Texas and California are the big players, I guess, but they've amassed most of the largest fighting force that's going to go up against DC.
Yeah. So very, very non-realistic. But
so I think, I mean, right there, right? Alex Garland, I feel like, is trying to make the point that it's gotten so bad and we hate this guy so much that these two states that would never in a million years get along decided to band together and do something. Right.
And you're right. In just in that, like, itself, it's like I'm trying to wipe or trying to clear your illusion of what you or your perception of what you think you've been told. Yeah. Right. And there are some truths to that, but at the same time, like, this is not, that has nothing to do with the movie.
It's not the point that it's trying to make.
Right. Exactly. Like, again, before we even watched this movie, and that was like what was said, like in the press, whatever, that's when people start making the jokes and the memes, because they're like, Texas and California, best friends, like that will never happen. Right. But like, and you know, I was part of that anyways as well too. And look at me, like, with egg on my face, because that really had nothing to do with the movie at all.
With anything. Really. Yeah.
And so as they're trying to protect this water, one of the I guess you could say, like,
kind of
amateur photographer gets struck with like a baton, and Lee sees this, and Lee kind of pulls her aside and gives her press, I guess, like a vest. It's not even a Kevlar vest. It's like one of those construction vests.
Yeah, the reflective kind.
Yeah, with which I guess the point kind of being like, you know, hey, you should be wearing this because that way people will know
that you're legit.
Not to strike you, right? Because you're not part of the protest. You're there to document what's sort of happening. So, right from the onset, we sort of we see Lee in action. She's photographing like the terrible things that happen, and then as things sort of simmer down for just a moment, in a very like kind of shocking moment, there's like, I guess, a patriot, or I don't know what that was, but there was like a dude or a person. I couldn't even see what it was.
I think it was a lady, honestly.
It was somebody with a flag that ran into the crowd with the water and
past Lee and the girl that she just saved.
And just like self-detonates herself and blows up all the water and everybody in that area. And Jessie, who's the amateur photographer, she's in shock. Like, I don't think she's seen anything like that. And Lee immediately gets like on the job and starts photographing like the horrific events that had just happened. And so you get this, like, I think they also shortly thereafter, and I think a little bit as the movie kind of moves on right after this, like, Lee is having like flashbacks of some of the places that she has photographed through different wars. Right. And
it's just really gut wrenching stuff.
Yeah. It's a literal flashback in that she's remembering things that she has seen in her time. And that pretty early on, because that's like within the first like 20 minutes of the movie. Yeah. That was pretty intense.
Yeah, it like kind of turned my stomach a little bit.
It did, and it also spoke to the importance of what if she wasn't there to photograph those things. Like,
but then it also begs the question, right? Like, what is the point at which you're just photographing when you can help? You know what I mean?
Well, right, but.
And I know that, you know.
But photographing the moment might actually be helping. If it is a bigger, like, it is, it's thinking about the bigger picture, because you're there to share the message of like, these terrible things are happening here, and either people don't know about it or want to acknowledge that it happens. And the power of the photograph is that of showing what these people are doing. Or do you save one to like, are you sacrificing one for the hundreds of thousands potentially, right?
Okay, so it is kind of funny, because I think, as on top of Alex Garland making a statement about being anti-war,
right,
I think he is honestly, just from the movie, just as skeptical about how war journalism operates.
That's fair. Like,
and it's funny that we're talking about biases, because you mentioned you're a photographer,
right,
and you still. You like to photograph.
I haven't done it as much, but yeah.
Right, but you know what it takes to photograph the perfect moment, right?
It does.
And obviously you've never been at war or done war photography or anything like that, but like, you understand the kind of pressure it would take to get the perfect moment.
Right.
Perfect lighting, perfect exposure, perfect focus.
Right.
So
you have to be in the zone in order to
capture that moment.
Right. And you have to like not, like, again, I've never photographed in a war, so I'm not going to act like it is, but having photographed like weddings, and you don't want to disappoint anybody.
Right.
And I've had the mother-in-law give me like the 1,000-yard stare of like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you on that side of like the thing or whatever? And I was like, because I'm not photographing for you, I'm photographing for them.
Sure.
And I'm not, like, the way I see it is like, if you're taking a picture of them and you see me in the background, well, it's my job to take the picture of what they're wanting, not you taking a picture with your phone to and I'm in it, right? So they're mad because they can see the photographer like crouching down and getting these shots that I need to get. And so like, for me, like, I can't even begin to imagine what a war photographer goes through, because you have to be in that mindset of like, my job is to document what is happening. Also, bullets are flying at me and a bunch of shit's going on, right?
I gotta make sure I'm not dying.
So I would imagine my focus isn't going to be there, or hopefully I've set all my aperture or my my speeds are all good. Because like, I'm not going to have time to like really look down at my like at my the back of my digital camera and be like,
hold on guys, hold on.
Man, can you
do that again?
Can you step into the light just a little bit more? Like, so like in those sequences, like, yeah, it's super intense, but you're right. Like, how much is that actually?
Like, at what point is it information and exposure versus like exploitation and unnecessary? Right. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, at least with what's her name, the Lee character, you question that when you see her at these horrific places,
right,
witnessing all these horrific things. Everything's just happening right in front of her. And it's funny because in this movie, there's like a magical blanket over the press that no matter where you are, they're not going to get touched or they're not going to get harmed, which is kind of interesting. But I think just the fact that she sees all this, and there's even a couple of things that they flash back to that she's involved in. It's like, she could have done something. She could have stepped in and helped. And regardless whether or not that's the point or that she was obligated to, it crosses your mind, right? Like,
it does.
At what point are you just doing your job versus like, where is that humanity in you to help at that situation? Because even at that bombing attack, the first thing she does is raises her camera.
Right.
Like, not once does she go around checking to see if she can help or, like, trying to call for the medic over here, or she literally just starts photographing dead bodies.
Right.
Which, she's a photographer. That's the instinct, but you gotta wonder, like, where did that humanity go? That's the first thing you think of instead of literally anything else.
Right. But it also, and it's funny because I think to play a little bit of devil's advocate to some degree, right, is like, I think the movie is also saying that we as like a public, no matter, because all those people were there like with their cameras and doing whatever, right? No matter what we see though, like, we refuse to either believe it or think that it's that bad. And I think she is taking the really bad shots, like the things that are very, very terrible.
Right.
Because you notice that none of those amateurs were there after the bombing went off. She was the only one that was there. And
I think she was the only one that getting blowed up.
Well, yeah, that's true. She's probably the only one that maybe survived of that photography group. But it's almost kind of saying like, because there was a time, and I think it probably more so was heavier during Vietnam.
Sure.
When photography, like really showing what was happening there.
Yeah.
Really opened people's eyes to like, war is terrible. Whereas in World War II or coming out of World War II, right, it was always like, we're here to kick Hitler's ass, right?
Yeah,
and then we have all the propaganda paintings.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Right. But it wasn't until you see like people with their legs blown off or things that are terrible, terrible imagery that the power of the image really is like, this is what is happening here, right? And so, yeah, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because like maybe she should help, but then also like she needs to show people what is happening here, right?
Well,
like people are willing to sacrifice themselves by running into like a truck to blow up, water for people because of their beliefs, right? And this is the result of that, right? Like potentially.
Right.
And she's photographing like dead civilians, and it's terrible, but it's like somebody needs to make sure that people see that, right? And so it's a very powerful message that he's trying to send.
Well, like I think it really, I don't know, like from seeing that, I really think it walks that tightrope line of like, is this, at what point is it a noble profession that is trying to reach the masses about this horrific thing that's happening versus like, I'm just going to take pictures because that's what I do. Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think this is the masterwork of Alex Garland because I think he publicly said, it's for you to decide as a viewer.
Exactly.
Do you think is happening here?
Right.
And like you and I are sort of talking and debating a little bit about this, but we're doing exactly what he wants us to do, which is like, well, should she have done something?
Yeah.
Or should she have done her job? Because both sides of that
both sides of that is right.
They have valid.
And wrong.
Yeah, they are valid. And
it's so interesting, right? Because really, at the end of the day, until you're there and you feel it and you witness it and you see it, like there's no telling what the right or wrong move is.
Right.
Besides, trying not to harm somebody else.
Right.
Like, really, you can either stand back and take the picture or you can go in and try to help. But I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like the master of this movie is, and it's almost funny because I feel like some people were upset about that because they wanted
definitive explanation.
Right.
They wanted him to
tell me.
Yeah, they wanted him to take a stand, which I think. And I know we're still straying away from like narrating the movie, but I think it's so important to have a piece like this that makes you think and makes you have to argue and discuss and maybe be wrong and that's totally not what he meant when we look it up in an article that he had interviewed. Like, I think that's so interesting when you see so much other media that like lays it out for you and lays it on thick, and they have this one message and they're trying to get it to you and they're trying to convince you that I'm right and nothing else is right because I'm going to be smug and self-righteous about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I think the fact that he's trying to get you to have this conversation
and use your brain
is so important, and it's such a lost skill in storytellers today.
Exactly.
Because everybody has to be right about what they're saying, and everybody is gonna Google research so that they can make a point.
Right.
And
so you can be smug about it and be like, "I told you."
Right. You have to be so self-righteous about. This is my stand, and I'm gonna find the proof to back me up.
Right.
And I don't care what kind of proof you looked up, because I'm already right. And there's not that art of debate anymore. You know what I mean? There's not this art of back and forth to find some kind of middle ground.
Right, exactly.
Now it's all like, oh, my team won, so fuck you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like on either side, really, on any side. It's such a horribly like polarized place that we're at. Right. Not just the country, but just in general. Like everybody has to everybody has to one up the other person.
Right.
And it's like what does that actually, what kind of brownie points are you actually chasing? That's more important than talking to the person right in front of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I'm saying this now, even though like we've talked about so many movies that we've really enjoyed. I really do think that this is maybe one of the better movies, if not maybe the best movie of the year. Oof. Because of exactly what you just said, which is like, I was able to make a movie that requires you to talk at the end, like it still hits the hallmarks of, you know, a 3-act structure and storytelling and great visuals, great acting, like everything. But at the end of the day, right, we're kind of left to be, wait a minute, like, so who's the winner?
Yeah.
And he's like,
what was that about?
He's like, I was telling you a movie about how, like how when things go so bad that people have to document these things, whether it's good or bad, and that's what they have to do. And it's a terrible thing to reach this point, but it's a story that needs to be told. And it's like, well, no. Well, who won? Like, you know, and it's like, whatever, dude. Like, that's not the point. But I'm very much like, I'm juggling in my mind. It's like, man, was this the best movie of the year? But either way, maybe we'll come back around to that. So they go back to their hotel to retreat. They are basically reconnoitering, or, you know, they're
reassessing what their next
move's going to be.
There's a lot of this chatter about something's about to happen.
Something big's going down. Where's everybody going?
Yeah, there's movement towards DC of the opposition forces or whatever.
Right, but apparently in Charlottesville, there's something big that's going to happen. There's big fighting that's going on, and it seems like that's where a lot of
they're calling it the front lines, right?
Right, that's where the press, I guess, the majority of the press is going.
But we find out that Lee and Joel are wanting to head straight into DC,
right?
Because they want to talk to the president. Even though later it's told that, like, the president hates the press.
Right.
He's going to shoot you on sight. He's not even going to let you through. There's no interviewing him because he thinks the press is the enemy.
Right.
But they're determined to go because they feel like that's the biggest news story that they can get.
It's the only thing left in this war that's worth talking about. And again, maybe even in that in itself, when they're kind of talking about it, again, not to like derail the conversation even more, but like in a way they're kind of saying that they're like, what's on the front line? Just people
more
dying,
fighting.
Like people fighting. Like what the story is.
What's
the president guy?
Yeah, who's pulling the strings?
Right, exactly.
What's the plan?
Exactly.
Yeah, where's this going?
So that is what they feel is the journalistic duty to do. So, and
it's either that or they want to one up all the other journalists.
Right.
So really, it's this. Yeah, I feel like this movie is all about how you think the motivations are driving
exactly
the people. Do you think they're noble and they want to go after the truth and they want to go after the story, or do you think they're just like the rest of us?
Right. And the brilliance of that is the way the characters were drawn out too. Right. Is you have a very battle-hardened, probably mentally just completely destroyed Lee.
Yeah.
You have a Joel character who is kind of gets, you know, he gets like he
gets off on like
there's a lot
battle.
Of scenes where he talks about how like the battles and the combat and all that gives him a rush.
Yeah.
But he's not a photograph, like he's just running along with everybody else because he's the writer. So he's documenting what's happening, I guess, in his mind or however he goes about documenting that. But like he's just part of it. So he talks about like, man, I love it. Like I love, you know, the action.
What a rush.
Yeah, I love that. And so, since they're a team, like you said, it's like, is he there because he wants to one up everybody because that's the action and that's where the action is? Or is it a more noble cause like Lee is? But even then, you know, it's hard to tell.
Where is she even at this point? Like, is she just chasing the next thing? Right.
And I think that happens in a conversation that happens shortly after. So they're in the hotel. They read the Jesse, who's the young amateur photographer, finds her there, and they sort of talk a little bit about like, I want to do what you do, and you're my hero. I've always wanted to be a war photographer. And immediately Lee is like, you're fucking nuts. Like, you don't want this. Nobody wants this. I don't want this, but it's what I do. Right. She doesn't plainly come out and say that in any way, but that was like kind of my take on it. And that's where those flashbacks sort of happen when she's trying to rest up in the hotel room, and I guess she's taking a bath and she's sort of having flashbacks of all this stuff, and they meet up with another fellow photographer or fellow writer. I guess he writes for was it the New York Times?
I think they quickly mentioned
the New York Times or something like that. And so, who is Sammy, played by Stephen McKinley Henderson, the big guy from Dune.
Yeah.
He's got such a great voice. He's got that look about him. But yeah, so he's like talking about how he's this old reporter that like, I don't have much time left and I don't move around like I used to, and I can't cover war the same way that, you guys can, because you can move around and whatever. And my days are kind of numbered.
Yeah, he's walking around with a cane.
Right.
He's obviously much older.
Yeah.
And heavy set.
Well, and I think it kind of, it also adds to your theory there, right? Of like, he wants to know where they're going to be going. And they're like, we're not going to give up our location.
Plan, yeah,
our plan and where we're going to kind of go or whatever. And then even he sort of admits, he's like, look, I guess like I'm getting old and I don't want to beg any of these young guys for like a ride to the front lines in Charlottesville. I would kind of rather go with you guys because maybe you do have a lead on something big, even though he's the one who tells them, like, if you run into the president, he's just going to shoot you on sight. Like, it's a suicide mission and you're dumb for even thinking that it's like a real thing. But he's very quick to be like, but I'm going with you.
Yeah.
And so, like, is he doing it for a good cause or is he doing it for, like, the thrills? Like, it's like, why are you even doing this then? You know what I mean?
Right.
You're telling them it's absolute death and then you sign up to go with them.
Yeah, you just ride along anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
so what is that saying, right? Like, what does that mean about you? What does that mean about the purpose of what you're trying to do, right? If you know you're going to die or whatever. And so it's really interesting because, like, shortly thereafter that the gang is driving, like, basically to DC.
Right. It's like it says in one screen that it's going to be 800 something miles.
X amount of miles to get there. Yeah. And I think this is where we start learning the characters, right? Because like, this is where Joel talks about, like, he gets a real high off of this and, like, that's the story. And Lee is mad that that Joel has brought along both Sammy and Jesse on this trip because,
it's going to slow them down.
Right. It's going to slow them down. But then,
it's
like,
dangerous.
And Joel is trying to emphasize, well, like, we had to get our start somewhere.
Right.
And that's why I'm letting Jesse come along. And, Sammy, he's a friend. And
it sounded like there was some kind of mentorship history between Sammy and Lee maybe at some point. Or,
Yeah. And so it's funny because that's when you do start to get this sense of, like, wait, what is he trying to say about this movie? Because they run into another scenario where they stop to get some gas and they run into, I guess, again, I don't know who these people were. Like, I guess they were on the side with the president, I guess, or something. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, they had their guns out. And,
right. But they weren't in uniform, but they're
basically guarding the gas station,
right.
I guess.
And so they were bartering with those people. And
what was that little throwaway line that she was paying them in Canadian dollars? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I assumed that it was just that the value of the dollar, the American dollar, was like nothing.
Yeah,
because they offer $300 for gas, and they're like, that can get you a sandwich. But then it's like, I'll give you 300 Canadian dollars, which is probably worth, because they're not at war, right? So it's like the value of the Canadian dollar is probably like, I don't know, it's like a peso to like, what it is now. So I assume it has real value, right? Like to people there, or if you do go into Canada, it's like, oh, like it's legit.
Yeah.
The legit value. Yeah. So, but in that sequence, Jessie sees something off to the distance, and so she walks over there with her camera, and one of the sort of militia type people or whatever follows Jessie out there. Lee makes note of that, and then they go out to what is an abandoned, I guess, like car wash.
Yeah. And
there's two dudes that are being hung up.
They're strung up by their arms.
Right. And
I was kind of surprised that neither of them were dead. I guess they were beating up on them.
Yeah.
And the guy says that they were looters, but he kind of knew them from high school.
Right.
Or at least one of them.
Right. And so Jessie's kind of taken aback because she doesn't...
Yeah, she's shocked. It's obviously like she's never seen anything like this before. and it's a shock to the system.
The militia guy is very nonchalant about it. You
know,
like,
and he's actually kind of smirking at the fact that how shocked she is.
Right. And then Lee just does she quickly jumps into her job of like, well, I want to photograph this. Why don't you go stand next to them, right? And it's like, it's horrific, but the guy's willing to do it. And, you know, she's like, all right, cool. And she gets her shot. And the journey continues in their caravan or in their Suburban. And that's when they start talking about how, like, again, this kind of goes to some of the great acting, but also like some of the great writing about this, which is like, you know, Jesse's like beating herself up because she's talking about like, I froze. I didn't take the shot. Like, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's like my thing. And Lee is like, or like, do you think that they were going to kill those guys or whatever? And Lee's quick to say like, that's not our job. Like, my job isn't to ask them what they're going to do or to know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
My job is to photograph like what is happening.
Right.
And so like, she's like, even though she's trying to say like, I'm isolating myself from the scenario, right? But that goes to what you were saying earlier of like, but should they report that or should they tell should they try to help those guys down or whatever? Because like, it was brutal.
Yeah, she's basically fully distanced herself from like who has the nobler cause, or who's doing the right thing or the wrong thing. She's completely like divorced herself from that part of reality, and she's strictly a documentarian at this point.
So it becomes a question of like, is what she's doing exploitative,
right,
or is she doing her job? Because you're so detached that you're like, I don't care what happens to them, right. And it's like, well, then are you exploiting that, or do you care about them being hung up and beaten up because that's why you're photographing it, because that needs to be told? And you don't know. Like, she never says one way or another. She just says, it's my job to do that.
Yeah.
And then they quickly counter that by saying like, hey, be easy on Jesse. Cause like Jesse starts to sort of cry freak out. And, everybody like Joel and Sam are like, hey, Lee, take it easy. Like, you're being a little harsh on her. And then like, Joel's like, yeah, Lee doesn't, like, he says something along the lines of like she does nothing shakes Lee. Like, she can't be shooken. And then she kind of makes it look like, oh, I can't. Yeah. Because she was having those flashbacks earlier.
Right.
But she never acknowledges whether she is bothered by it or not.
Right.
So again, he has told us as a viewer, what do you think happened in that scene?
Yeah.
And we're like, fuck, I'm having a lot of emotions because I would like for somebody to tell me, but that's not what this movie is about. This movie is for me to decide what I think that means. And as troubling as that can be, maybe it has something to do more about like our personal beliefs or how we define hope or how we define hatred or whatever.
And it's like kind of, it makes you question a little bit about your image of yourself and how you would react in that situation. And it's always fun. That's always what I think about when we've watched Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
At that point where that one soldier, he freezes up and he's watching his buddy. Yeah, he's watching his buddy literally get slowly like stabbed to death by a Nazi. And you're screaming at him, right? Like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Right. He can't help his buddy. He's right there. He could have killed that soldier before his friend died, whatever. Right. But you know there's a small piece in your brain that's like, that could totally be me. Right. You know what I mean? And I think that's the most... And nobody wants to admit that, and that's why you're so mad at that character, because how can he be such a piece of shit? Why is he such a coward? Why can't he be like John Wick and like off all these motherfuckers, whatever? Right. But really, there's that little lizard brain in you that's like, oh, that's scary. I don't want to deal with that.
It's a fight or flight response.
Totally.
And
you're
it's
worried,
a real thing.
Yeah, and you're worried that you're the flight or the freeze instead of the fight. Right. You know. Because that's, you're right. No matter what kind of, and maybe training will beat that out of you at some point, whatever. But there's still that part of you that's scared that despite all that, am I going to freeze? And am I going to let somebody down? Is it going to be life or death?
And as a war photographer, right, you don't have that option. It's you got to be on. Yeah. Because not only are you trying to do your job, but you don't want to get shot.
Right. Exactly.
And you're in a scenario that those are the two options, right?
Yeah.
You either get shot or you don't do your job.
Right.
You know, if you do your job, then, you know, hopefully everything will be okay. If you get killed doing your job, then it was, you know,
worth it, I guess.
Well, and it was like, you know, what do they call that? Like work hazard, you know, sort of thing, right? Because, you know what you signed up for, right? Sort of thing. Yep. So yeah, I mean, not to go beat by beat in the movie. I mean, like, basically it's sort of, from that point, it's a little bit of a story of like, it's almost like Lee pushing knowledge to like Jesse through the various events, because I feel like they make a stop, and then there's another battle that's nearby them, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna go in the morning to check out what's going there, because we don't do this shit at night because it's dangerous, right? And so they go, and during the day there's a combat happening, and like it's they want to document it because it's on the way, and it's part of what they do as their job, even though they are headed to DC. But you start seeing like Jessie starting to really like.
She's kind of getting into it a little
bit,
but she's still like, there's still parts of it that she hesitates.
Right.
And she's like,
she's processing like how to do this,
and she's still shocked at certain points.
And like, she's watching Lee and understanding like how this job sort of works.
Yeah.
And again, it's like you really see like Jet or Joel like just getting like big thrills off of this, even though it's like you start seeing like how terrible up close and personal like war really is.
It's really harrowing how it's shot. I don't know that since Saving Private Ryan, I've watched a war movie that was that affecting to me as far as like the up close, like getting shot, the blood, the guts, and how horrible it looks. I don't know that.
You're right.
It's been a minute since I've really, I mean, obviously we watch a lot of crazy horror movies, but it's been a while since I've been affected like that much.
It's taken, well, see, and that's why I think we like horror movies, because we know,
it's fake.
It's fake,
the stakes are not
it's very
super
stylized,
high.
This movie, the scene,
it was too real.
That battle, battle, which is it was a very close quarters combat sort of scenario.
Yeah, it was really loud. It was messy. It was
exactly, I would imagine, they do those like, an army person watches a video and tells you like whether that's real or not.
Right.
And I'd have to probably ask my brother, and I hope he's never been in that close quarter of combat before. I'm pretty sure he's been in combat, but I don't think he's been in like urban close quarters combat like that. But you are right. Like that sequence there was very intense. Like I felt, that was the sequence where I was telling you, like I had very, very mixed emotions, because as a photographer, I was kind of like, I had part of my brain telling me like, dude, pull out your camera and take those shots. Like
that's what you're there for.
That's why you're there.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you see how close, and I think a lot of people, because Hollywood does this, right? Which is like, or even in video games, right? And I know this for absolute, right? Which is like, you just put the reticle over somebody, you shoot in that direction, right? But the reality is guns are really not that great. Yeah. Like guns are very inaccurate, and
people are inaccurate.
And people are inaccurate.
Yeah.
The way guns are effective is you have to get really close.
Yeah.
And like they were like the length of our house, right? Between the two of them, which our house is not very big, right? And so you have to be that close quarters in order for your weapons to be very effective. And I think the way that they were close together, the way that the camera was like, it's like the camera was one of the gun, or like one of the people within like that small like little strike team or whatever. And so like the way that the camera would sort of tilt out, like I was like, take the picture, but then I was also like, but take cover. And like it was, I mean, yeah, you're right, it was super intense, like more, as much if not more so than like Saving Private Ryan, because somebody's trying to do their job, but also these people are like trying to kill each other, and it's just, it's so hardcore. And so Jessie's basically like earning her stripes along the way, but I think you're also starting to see a little bit of Lee, like she's passing this knowledge, but also like I think as she passes this knowledge, I think it's like it's also opening her eyes to some of the things that we're saying of like how terrible this is, because she now has an attachment, which is Lee. And she's like, I don't want Lee to get hurt, even though early on she's like, I don't want her coming with us like any further than Charlottesville when we drop them off, because like she almost knows that if she gets an attachment, that it's going to be a problem. And then it ends up being a problem. Like, because she's seeing herself in her, and like, she doesn't want to have to go through that again. And it's almost more so of like, not only does she like not want her to get hurt, like potentially, like Jessie, that is, but it's really more like she doesn't want to have to relive her life through Jessie, because Sammy is the one who's like saying, hey, she's just like you, same age roughly, and she has the same like the same spunk that you had, and the same sort of like desire to want to do this. So like Sammy's almost like saying like she's just a little you, and she's like it like is opening her eyes to that. And I think she's like, I don't want to see this, because I'm seeing myself and I kind of hate myself for what I'm doing. And I think it comes to a head at the end, because we really see that. But so yeah, the movie just kind of moves on. They're kind of traveling, but I think when the movie hits the thesis, I think is when they're traveling again along the road, and they run it. I guess it's a golf course. They come across a golf course that they see like an army guy like shot and like dead in the middle of like.
Oh, you're talking about like the Christmas.
Yeah, the Christmas golf course that's like, or
no, I think it's just a display like of Christmas decorate. I don't know. It's weird.
I want to say it
looks like a private estate.
It was a private estate, but I want to say they were going through a golf course, because the distance between where they were and those houses was really far.
Right.
And so I think they were seeing over the golf course area. Oh. And so the only reason I say like I think this is like the apex of the movie is because so they're like suspicious, and they're like, should we go back or should we go forward? And Sammy, who's like the whole time sort of almost like the audience viewer. Yeah. A lot of times, because he's just cautious about everything, and he's like,
get out.
No, turn around, go back.
Yeah. The exit was back, just a couple miles back.
And they're like, no, we'll go forward.
No, whatever.
And the minute they start going forward, they get shot at from a sniper. And so they kind of pull off to an area, which I think is like maybe one of the club areas, like where I think there was like a golf stuff or whatever in that area.
It's really, really weird setup.
But so they stop there and they see like two, I guess, people that still are fighting for the president there.
Well, nobody knows. They're in army fatigues.
Well, no. I'm pretty sure they're fighting for the president, because the reason why I think this is the apex of the movie is because I want to say it's clear that Joel has a position in the movie, which is he is like anti-president. He's anti whatever it's called. I guess that's still the United States. And he's more Western Front.
Pro-Western Front.
Pro-Western Front, because when he gets there and he's asking them like, hey, who's giving you the orders here? Like, what's kind of the deal? And those two guys are like, what orders? That guy's trying to kill us, so we're trying to kill him.
Right.
And I think that's like the apex of the movie, because they're really trying to say like, oh,
it doesn't matter.
Like, because he's asking him, he's like, who's giving the orders here? Like, what's
the
cause?
Yeah. What is the plan? What is the position? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Like, what's all your, why are you here, and who's telling you to be here? Yeah. And the army guy who
so real.
Yeah. One guy's a sniper and the other guy's a spotter. And he's like, are you dumb? Or like, what does he say?
He actually uses the R word, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He says like, are you retarded? Yeah. Like, do you not hear?
Yeah.
He's trying to kill us.
We're getting shot, so we're shooting back.
Yeah, and then like, he looks over to Jessie, which is funny because she's photographing the sniper dudes. And then he's like, hey, what's going on here? And she's like, he's shooting you guys and you're shooting back. And he's like, she gets it. And it's like in that moment you realize like they're photographing all this and they're doing all this, but you know what? Doesn't fucking matter. Like it's terrible that guy's trying to kill them and they're trying to kill him.
Yeah. It's all to hell. Yeah.
That's the whole point. It's terrible. And that shouldn't be happening, but it is. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter. Ask all the fucking questions you want, but who cares? Like, and the imagery that is kind of shown there. And I think you see I think you see Lee really starting to lose the humanity in those moments around that point, because she's seeing that Jesse's really like kind of getting it, you know?
Yeah.
She's kind of understanding what's kind of happening here. So I thought that was really interesting, because I didn't think about it until we started talking about like how terrible war is. And it boils down to like, yeah, now you got like dudes just shooting each other. Yeah. And if you ask them why, they don't have a real clear answer other than like, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shoot that other guy before he kills me.
Right.
And you know, I think in a lot of ways, you know, having studied a lot of World War II for research for when I worked on a World War II video game, and, you know, talking to old American soldiers, they'd tell you the same thing. It's like, we talk to Germans and they'd be like, I'm not necessarily fighting because I believe that the Nazis are right.
No, I don't hate,
I'm fighting because
hate you guys, but
you guys have guns and are passing through
our... Yeah, you're in our country.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been told that I should defend my country. Right. And so war is terrible. Like, I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Like,
well, I think what we were talking about before we even kind of fired up the podcast is this point of view that Alex Garland has, that, yeah, like, just because it's so different from a lot of war movies, that at least the ones that I've seen, where it's always sold as this something big and noble and patriotic, and like, why else would you do this but for the country and your brotherhood and whatever the cause is. And so much of it is from the point of view of obviously the winners.
Right.
And even when they do try to like show the other side, they're also very noble. They're just wrong.
Right.
Whatever.
They were told this or that or whatever.
Yeah, they were tricked, or I don't know. But at the end of the day, everybody's good. They're just in a bad situation. Where in here, it's like, no, not. It doesn't matter, because it's all shit. Right. Like, I think that's why it's like it's so ballsy that he calls it civil war.
Exactly.
Because you don't know who you're supposed to root for, other than like, we kind of get the idea that maybe the president is a little bit of a fascist because it's like his third term or whatever. Yeah. But it doesn't explicitly say that he's horrible.
Right.
It's just, you assume it because people rose up that probably he is.
He's only in the movie for like less than 10 minutes.
You don't see him hardly ever. So there's a lot of these assumptions that you think of kind of embedded in your brain because of biases or whatever. But at the end of the day, you have no idea who the bad guy is, who you're supposed to be rooting for. It really is just the fact that, like, look at this. If you pull away from the context of anything that like happened before the war or what caused it, whatever, at the end of the day, people are dying.
Right.
Houses are burned down.
And that was a guy I knew in high school.
Right. Right. Like the militia guy that was saying that, like, oh, I knew him kind of in high school. Anyway, I might shoot him later.
Right. It's come to this.
Yeah. So it's wild when you really come down to think about it, because it's like, what really are we doing here?
Right.
This is dumb and insane, and I get it. Like, there's certain things. I mean, you know, I've talked a big talk about like revolution this and uprising that, whatever. But at the same time, when it comes right down to it, it shouldn't ever come to that.
Right.
In polite, civilized society, we should be past that. And it's ridiculous that we're still doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, the fact that Alice Garland is kind of driving this home of like, who are we rooting for?
You really want this?
It doesn't matter.
Right. You really want this?
Because this is shit, no matter which side you're on.
Yeah.
And these journalists are documenting it, and they don't care either which side it is. They're just trying to get the story. Because really, at the end of the day, it's war. So what even difference does it make?
Yeah. And it's terrible.
Yeah.
I think so. I guess just two more points real quick, or two more highlights of the movie. That leads, or shortly thereafter leads to maybe the climax of the movie, of probably the most, easily the most frightened that you and I have been in a very long time.
That, honestly, I thought I was going to throw up. I honestly did think I was going to throw up for a minute there.
Yeah. So along their travels, they run across two more of their friend journalists, Jesse and the other person, the driver of the other vehicle. Like, they sort of switch vehicles. There's a whole sequence there, and
there's something silly and stupid.
Yeah,
like they're just kind of having fun.
They're being just what they used to be prior to the war, right? Like, probably good friends and kind of hanging out with these people, and they do some dumb shit on the road, and
It's all fun and games.
Yeah. It's all fun and games until when they catch up to the other vehicle, because now Jesse is in the other vehicle with the driver, that they notice that the vehicle is now on the side of the road and the doors are open and they've probably been pulled from the vehicle.
It's bad vibes.
Yeah, something's not right. And Sammy is quick to be like, this doesn't feel right.
This no good.
This is not good.
Yeah.
And so they realize that Jesse and the other driver have been pulled aside by what appears to be like dudes in full military fatigues. And I don't think those guys were Western Front, because the Western Front guys actually had little symbols with the 2 stars.
Yeah.
Because they had that flag.
Yeah.
And like these guys, it just said U.S. Army, and so.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I don't think. I assume that they still were working for, or the president, but at the same time, it was really one of those.
It was really gray area.
Very gray, very gray area.
Who are they working with? Why are they here?
Right.
And then kind of pan out and pull out to see that they're dumping bodies into a mass grave.
Right.
And now
of
they
civilians.
Civilians. Nobody's in uniform.
Yeah, nobody that they were putting in there was in uniform. So it's hard to say whether they were militia, like maybe the civilian people were militia, but it didn't look like it. They looked like normal people in normal clothes, and there was a fuck ton of bodies that were being dumped in there, and so
it was just a mass grave.
You see Jesse and the driver guy down on their knees. And we're seeing this all through like a zoom lens, because
Lee has a telephoto.
Yeah, she has telephoto, so she's kind of gauging what's happening, and all 4 of them are just like, this is no good.
It's no good.
But she's like, we got to get down there or they're dead.
Yeah.
And Sammy's like, they're already dead. Like, those dudes don't want us to be over there.
They're like, they don't want anybody to know what they're doing.
Right.
And it's obvious.
And there's are those guys in uniform that they're the dead people? Are they in uniform? It's like, no. And then he's like, well, look at us. We're not in uniform. You think that they're going to give a shit about us?
Yeah. And it's funny because even then Joel's like, but we have press passes.
Right.
Like, that's immunity, right?
Yeah. Like we're exactly. To him, it's like a game.
Right.
That rush and everything is like very much a game than it is like a real thing.
Yeah.
And it happened shortly after this sequence. But so they're like, all right, let's just go down there. And they go and try to talk reason to this army guy who's played by
Jesse Plemons.
Who's
fantastic.
And
he's
and
in it for not even 10 minutes in.
He's in there that's maybe an 8-minute sequence. Who he's married to
Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah. But so again, they don't really say what side he's on, even though I based on what he was wearing, I assumed that he was on the U.S. side, not the Western Front. Mm-hmm. And everything he asks of them when they show up is extremely disturbing in the sense of
almost racist, but not flat out.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, right, it's Alex Garland saying is he saying what he's doing
what is
racist?
He saying? Yeah.
Is it just the way that the perception of how you're hearing it,
right,
or what he's doing, right, or not that there should be any justification for that many people being dead, but the clues are there.
Yeah.
But clearly he's a bad dude, because they come up and Joel's trying to reason with him by saying, hey, these are my colleagues.
Yeah.
There's some kind of mistake here. Everything's cool. Don't, there's no need to freak out, just be cool. And the army guy is like, oh, this is your colleague right here. Mm-hmm. And he just blows that dude away. The driver guy, to sort of set the tone of
he's fucking nuts. Obviously.
Yeah. Look at me. I'm the captain now,
right.
Scenario. Which sets the tone, right? Because he just murdered somebody in front of everybody, and now everybody's he's very Samuel L. Jackson. Oh, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration?
Right.
Because now he's like, what is it? What are you saying? You're a what now? You're a photographer. You're a reporter, and he's like, who do you work for? And that's when they say Reuters, and he's like, that doesn't sound very American to me.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh no, we're here to cover the war that's happening, but they're very careful with their words of how they say they're covering the war.
Yeah, they're not telling them they're going to DC or not. I think they mentioned Charlottesville, but
they said
but
they
we're
were
only we're going to check out the university because they're reopening
a school, and we all need that hope right now. We think it'll be a great story. And he's like, yeah, that's totally what we all need right now.
Sure. Anyway, what kind of American are you?
Yeah. And he's like, we're all Americans here. Yeah. And he's like, what kind of American? Which is what you see in the trailer, but like he's asking like Central, West.
Yeah, so you think they're afraid to answer because you're not sure which side he's on.
Right.
But really he's asking, are you Mexican? Basically,
yeah.
Because the two white girls, they're like, I'm from Missouri, I'm from Colorado, and then Joel says, I'm from Florida, and he's like,
Florida,
Florida,
so South,
right?
Because he's like Central America, like South America, like not like the United States, North America,
right? And then he turns to their friend, their other reporter friend, because at this point, Sammy doesn't come down the hill with them. Because Sammy's like, no, fuck that. I can't run good. And also, they're going to kill you. So I'm going to stay up here.
This is a death march. I'm all good.
I'm going to stay up here and not die.
Yeah, because he's from Florida. She says that she's from Colorado.
Yeah.
And then he asks Jesse, where are you from? And she's like, Missouri.
But then the other friend that they have with them, he's obviously like in shock because his friend just got shot and blah blah blah. And so the whole time you're like, just say you're from fucking Chicago, wherever,
from Wisconsin,
New York. Say
anywhere.
something that's. But of course he's so freaking out so hard. He's like, oh, I'm from Hong Kong. Immediately gets shot.
Right.
And so you see kind of where that's going as far as like, oh, so he's probably going to turn around and kill Joel next.
Right. He's just going to kill all these dudes, really, in the end. But he's torturing them, like, mentally, and making the point that makes sense to him.
Right.
And it is, man, that is the most tense I've been.
That turned my stomach. That was even before they showed, like, a close-up shot of, like, the mass grave.
Right. That was the most... That was the most tense I've been. I can't even think of the last time a movie did that.
Yeah, that was really fucked up because it felt so menacing and real.
Unfortunately, yes, it felt very real. Of like, there are probably people who want to ask questions like that, right? Of like,
sure, they already do, yeah.
And probably already do now.
They just don't have guns with them yet.
Yeah, and so like that movie or that sequence is very, very tense. And you're like. I was almost sure that at least one more of them was going to go.
Yeah, same.
I was like, that it's just not going to happen. Yeah. And then in a somewhat movie-esque way, and one of the few times that I was so happy that it kind of happened. It very similar to, what was the movie that we watched? Oh, I can think. The last time that I think I told you is the Leo DiCaprio movie where the one about the Oklahoma, like the natives in Oklahoma.
Oh, Killers of Flower Moon.
Killers of Flower Moon, where I remember I told you where I was like, never have I ever like been relieved when a police person showed up because that movie was just beating me down.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, thank God, finally somebody has showed up. And it went like, because I was getting ready to quit. Like I was just, I can't take this anymore. Yeah. That sequence is so tense that I was like, I don't know if I can take this anymore. Yeah. And then in a very movie fashion, and I'm so glad, Sammy comes barreling down the hill with the car, with the press truck, and just fucking plows them at the last second, which I did not expect.
No.
You really don't expect it. And if you're listening to this, then we've spoiled like the biggest part of this movie, but we warned you.
It was great.
It was very like hurrah moment because both you and I were like screaming at the TV of like, get in the fucking van. Get in. Because
hooray.
Not only were they, I mean, he hit the army guy, but the other guy, there was still another guy there. And then there were actually two other guys that were there. We just didn't see them. Yeah. Because they were not that close, but they were close enough. Yeah. And so we're just screaming for everybody to get in so they can get out. But Jessie was knocked.
She was like flung into the mass grave. And that was fucking just... That was I think, that's really when my stomach turned again, and I really thought I was gonna I was going to throw up at that point.
It's funny that it was like that moment of like relief kind of happens, and then it's like, oh, but wait, you're still bleeding.
Fuck. Yeah.
Because now it's almost just as worse. Like now you're covered in death. And then I was like super tense because I was like the other army guy who did grab a rifle starts shooting at them. I was like, oh God, like
obviously
this can't be good, right? Yeah. And so they're trying to get away. They eventually they're able to get away, and they're just like hauling ass down the road, and like this movie is very good at character building and making you care because we find out that Sammy at that point has been shot during that sequence. And I, like you're saying, your stomach felt, my stomach dropped because I was like, I can't believe they made it. And then he's like, I've been shot.
Nope. Yeah.
We got to pull over. And I was like, my stomach sank because I was like, God damn it. Why did I fall for the movie aspect of this? Because
of course
in real life, that's not like in real life, it's not that easy. Right.
Sure.
And people die and these things happen. And like, that breaks Lee at that point. Like,
I think that's where she really
comes full circle and realize it's funny because it is full circle because now Jesse has replaced Lee.
Yeah.
And she has witnessed the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
But it has now not stopped her. Like now she's been through the shit.
Yeah, she's still going. Yeah.
Has seen her go to the shit, which is kind of, I think, like looking at herself in a mirror, and she breaks, and she's like, I can't. I'm fucking broken because I just watched Sammy die, and like for what? And then this is also where it gets very upsetting as well too, and exploitative, I think. So they make their way to the Western Front camp, which is just outside of DC, because I guess they were driving there with the hopes of getting Sammy some assistance.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he dies before they can get there. And so they get there. You see that the army is mounting, and you see Joel talking to two of their reporter friends, and Lee meets up with them, and she's like, "What's up?" Joel's like super pissed and angry because the army is about to.
They're mobilizing.
They're going to DC because the majority of the government has like surrendered, but the president hasn't.
He's holed up. Yeah.
So the Western Front's going to go in to just take him out.
Yeah.
And Joel's pissed because he's like, our story is gone.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I was like, are you fucking serious? That's why you're mad?
Yeah.
But then he quickly, right after, says, so Sammy died for nothing. And I was like, no, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, you brought him to this.
Yeah.
You didn't have to.
Yeah.
And that wasn't his story anyways.
Yeah.
And so he feels very exploitative where Lee now feels like I should have done something to help, right? Yeah. So it kind of goes back to what we were saying of like, as a viewer, like you have to take all this in and now what, right? Like, so what does this mean, right? Yeah. And the consequences of all these things. And basically the movie just kind of wraps up with like, all right, we're going into DC and we're going to take out.
Yeah, we're just going to follow the military, I guess.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna keep going and see it all the way through the
end. Yeah.
So there's it's a whole sequence, a lot of huge.
I mean, it's the biggest action sequence. I still think
it is crazy. Also,
the Jesse Plemons sequence, I feel, is like the highlight of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, highlight not in like, oh man, I love that scene. Like that scene was tough.
It was,
but I mean, the movie is all downhill from there. Yeah. Even though there is a big battle sequence at the end, like
it's funny because it wasn't, I don't even know how to say it. It wasn't the point.
No, it really wasn't.
Like, the fact that you've seen all of this basically like civility and order and whatever is just belly up in this country because there's war and it's chaos. That's what the movie is about. The movie isn't about the ending. You know what I mean?
Not at all.
Like
not at all.
By the time you get to the end, it's almost like I don't care anymore.
No, it really does.
I mean, like you care because you want to see it through, but at the same time, it's like you've already made these characters go through so much. Like at the end, like what's left?
Well, no, and I'm glad you say that because that's exactly how the movie feels.
Yeah.
Like I could imagine somebody saying this movie feels very flat at the end. It's like no, it's not, because that's kind of the point. Like,
yeah, yep.
This is not the end. Like, this is just a sequence in
this
the continued events
situation,
of just messed up shit. And yes, we get resolution, but so basically they storm into like the White House, even though like for a moment there it looks like the president is making a run for it, but that was just a decoy. And so Lee makes so when they get there, and to kind of just step back a minute, like as they're there and as combat is going down, like Lee's broken. She's not photographing.
Yeah.
She is shook.
She's like she's having like a panic attack in the middle of this, all this gunfire.
It's going to get her killed because she's not focused.
Yeah.
And Jessie is 100% focused.
She's
like
honed in.
She is now like full Lee. Like she's photographing great shots. She's getting in there. It's like she's doing everything that she should be doing, and Lee is going to get herself killed.
Yeah.
And it's really heartbreaking actually to kind of watch because like she shouldn't be there. And they were like, you're just like, dude, just stay out.
Yeah.
Like,
stop driving her
if you can't like, but, and I jokingly said in a very Gen X way of just like, she's like, nope, I'm going to work my way through it. Like, I'm just not going to whatever. And, like I say that jokingly, but at the same time, like, I don't know, there's maybe some real to that as well too, which is also traumatizing, but, she works her way through it, and Joel's trying to get her through it. And it isn't until the decoys try to make their way out that Lee her instincts are kind of like, no, that's not the end. Like, and the president's not in there. He's held up in the White House, and we should go in there. And I think the Army or the Western Front guys are like, yeah, I think she's right. And so they also go in. So they all kind of go in together. Like a big battle, like within there ensues, and that was also pretty tense of close quarter combat fighting, and the way that was photographed. And then it leads all the way up to the end where like, I don't want to give that one spoiler. I think we'll leave that out.
That's the one.
That's the one. You know, but I mean, because at that point, right, it's obvious that they're going to make their way to the president, and I think in a very also. Like Alex Garland putting the mirror right up to you to say like, so what do you think that meant? Because they finally make their way to the president. They literally drag him out of like
behind the desk,
behind the desk in the oval room, and the Army or the Western Front guys are about to shoot him, and Joel stops him. He's like, no, and he walks up to him. He's like, I need a quote, and he says, don't let them kill me, and he's like. That'll work.
Ugh.
And then they shoot the president.
Harrowing.
But right, it's like a human asking other people like
not to kill him.
Not to kill them. And it's like, is it a game or is it like humanity? Like, have you really like turned on humanity so much that when somebody asks you not to be killed, that you kill them anyways, right? Yeah. So who the hell's right? Like nobody is. Like
you
war is terrible.
Once the movie ends, you don't get that sense of like, yay, it's over.
Right.
Like, or yay, they won, or like that sigh of relief that you get from like like superhero movies when the good guys win or whatever. Like they go through this huge battle,
right?
And they're super noble and they're doing it for heroic reasons, and obviously they killed the bad guy and that's good and we're cheering and yay, because they saved the planet or whatever.
Right.
But here it's like
there's a photograph of them standing next to the dead president as if he was like a deer that they killed.
Did that not give you like what was it? Those like it made me like flash back to like those Guantanamo Bay pictures.
Yeah, it was
so fucked up.
It was terrible.
It was horrible.
But the movie ends on that shot to go like, so who's right?
Yeah, so so we won, right? So that's good.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, yay.
Because that's what you wanted, right? Yeah. That's what.
And it's the same, like, and it's funny because, like, whatever, right? Because we went through the whole like 9/11 stuff.
Right.
We have vivid memories of exactly where we were when we heard the news. So when years down the line, they finally killed Osama bin Laden, there was a certain emotion that you felt that now that chapter is closed and that motherfucker's not floating around out there anymore, whatever.
Right.
But that kind of thing, that makes you think of this scene in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Because there's this idea of like, oh, there's this badass team of guys, good old American soldiers that went in there and got the bad guy, and yay, we're done. We're America and we're America. Free. Like, yeah. So, but then you think about it, like on the human level. I'm not even saying I didn't cheer when I heard about that. I'm not gonna pretend like I was above that. But like really, this kind of movie makes you sit back and say, on the human level,
right?
What does that mean? Right. That we're celebrating death because it's gotten to that point,
right?
That like this person did something so horrific and so bad that we've become desensitized to how horrible that act is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said, like right or wrong. I mean, obviously, you know, having lived through, like I said, 9/11 and seeing all of that.
Or even the Iraqi war for me in high school.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of things like that. You
right.
know?
Like, there's still that part of you that like, oh, thank God, those bad guys are dead.
Right.
The boogeyman is gone. And yay, America is safe again forever.
Right.
You know what I mean? But really, really at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of monkeys like throwing sticks at each other.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. And it's like, you know, again, I feel like the movie really is just war is terrible. Let's not do it.
Stop doing that because it sucks.
Let's just, you know, regardless of what you think, or hopefully it never comes to that.
And you know, the only people that enjoy it, these assholes, that ask people questions and even, then shoot them into mass graves.
Yeah, even army people or anybody who's military, like, they don't want to have to do that.
No, I know, and that's kind of an important point too, right? They're people doing a thing that they think is right, or somebody told them is the right thing to do, or they're following orders or whatever it is. But they're there to do a job. Yeah.
Right.
Which, you know, you don't even necessarily, and it's funny, the other aspect of it, the soldiers smiling down at the dead body, it's almost like you can even argue to the other side, oh, they're happy that it's a job well done.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, I'm glad this is over.
Right. It's finally over, and now we can heal and move forward.
But it's also like, that's a dead person right there.
Yeah.
How about we go get a picture in the hallway with not next to a dead person, right?
Yeah. It's like, it's crazy.
You can easily, you can go circles and your brain will just fry out. But you have to applaud Alex Garland for making you go.
You have to ask those questions of yourself. You can't be like so definitive in that, like, oh no, it's totally fine because whatever, for the greater good.
Right.
But like even when we talk about the, you know, the insurance CEO guy, I'm not gonna say that like I lost any sleep about that or whatever.
Right.
But then at the end of the day, it's like, oh, that's how far. That's where we are now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because like, I felt that too.
Totally.
I was more very much on the side of like, this is scary to me that like somebody was killed and we're all like, well, you know, had it coming.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, what? I didn't say that. Like, I want to make sure it's clear that I didn't say that because like, it makes me feel weird because I like to think that I'm a person that I'm very like, violence is the last resort.
Sure.
But if somebody was to try to do something to you, I'm going to violence the motherfucker out of that, you know, if I have to.
What if you were pushed to the last resort and that's what you felt? You know what I mean? Like,
right, exactly. I hope that it never comes to that.
Exactly. It's so shitty when you do feel at that point.
That's what I mean? That's what made me feel. And
that's what you should be concerned about.
Yes, that's what made me feel like very bothered about.
Right.
Like, I'm not calling out friends or anything, whatever, right? As it's more of a society as a whole, right?
Exactly.
It's like we are like, you know, hey, you know, it's like his insurance claims didn't go through or whatever. Like,
right.
You know, whatever. Like and maybe because I'm just older now but I'm not saying like one way or another as much as like, it's crazy that like, it's just like a thing now. Like, I don't know. There used to, and again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but there was a time where maybe that was said more in private. Yeah. And like within your own household.
Oh, it's like, it's dark humor and maybe some edgy comedian is going to make a joke.
But now it's
because remember how long
it's the biggest
it's the biggest
trending thing on Twitter.
It's the biggest meme, right?
So apparently we're all like in the same household and we're all dark comedy people. Like, I don't know if that makes me feel great, to be honest. Like,
yeah, it's kind of a sad state of affairs when you can't, the powers that be like make it harder and harder for us to empathize with each other as human beings.
Right. Exactly.
I guess is my biggest takeaway.
And that's why we need to bring back the video store.
Oh, what?
I don't know. I just I don't know. I had to get us off our soapboxes because I'm like,
yeah, I know.
We weren't talking about the movie anymore, but I think that's the point. Alex Garland didn't fully want us talking about the movie, but he wanted the movie to be a point to have a discussion.
Right.
And I think 100%. if you've made it this far into the podcast and you agree or disagree with what we're saying and are not like, these guys are idiots, you know, it's like we're just having a conversation.
We're just talking.
That I think the way that he wants us to have a conversation.
Yeah, it's not a matter of
and I think
one-upping each other. I know more than you, or I'm right, or whatever.
And I think the ability that it takes to do that, and for us to engage in this, like, you have to give props to this person. And did he make like the Academy Award Best Picture of the Year? God. Like, there's a really good chance, maybe, I think.
Yeah.
Well, whether he does or doesn't, and you know, and that's just an award or whatever, like, he's affected us, right? Because you and I are recording this, and we've talked more about other things that relate to this than we have about almost the movie itself.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about what he has done as an artist. So I have to applaud that because that's really hard to do. And
because whatever, it's kind of funny because I don't know that I felt, other than it being anti-war, I don't know that he was pushing any other agenda one way or the other. It was more like, you should question this stuff that's happening around you.
Right.
You should not just lay down and be like, that's just how it is, because that's whatever. It should be more like, you should keep engaging in the people around you, because that's the only way we can keep being aware of what's going on.
Right.
And that way we can choose to fight or whatever. But like, either way, you can't just like, oh, whatever, I don't hear anything. I'm just putting my head in the sand.
Yep. I'm just going to ignore everything.
Right.
And
it'll be fine at the end.
Look the other way and eat my meal.
Yeah.
Speaking of eating a meal, we still have to do that.
Rough.
So we have to do the food portion of this movie, and this is really hard because we just watched this movie and we had a lot to say about it. I will go first because I've actually done this, and it's maybe a little bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to do it anyways. I don't care. So what I would pair with this movie is a MRE.
Okay.
And it would be specifically, I've had a lasagna MRE.
Oh.
It was actually quite good.
Okay.
It came with maybe some sides, and it came with a garlic bread.
Oh,
yeah, and it was quite interesting, and I think the way the MREs work, it's kind of funny because the only reason, I don't know if you remember I guess you didn't know me back then, but when I was going to work on the video game Brothers in Arms that I worked on at Gearbox at the time, so this is back in like 2004. Mm-hmm. They took us to Fort Hood in Killeen, or near Killeen, to do some Army training. And the Army training was specifically to show us like how squads work and how a squad works in combat, because our game was going to be a squad based video game. And it actually did teach me a lot about like what those guys kind of go through, in the sense of like how they stay organized and how they move together.
Sure.
And
the tactics.
The tactics of what it means to like lay down suppressing fire and then to move, and all that kind of stuff. But partly because they probably wanted to break a bunch of video game nerds, they took us for a full day of like effectively like a mini boot camp, in that they didn't make us do like exercises or whatever, but they did make us like we had to wear an army helmet, which my brother will he will tell everybody, and we had to wear the old World War II ones. Oh. But those things weigh about like 6 pounds, which doesn't seem like a lot.
Not on your head though.
Exactly. So like when it's on your head all day, and we had to wear it all day, like it really like it affects you a lot. And we had to wear fatigues, and we had to wear our combat boots and that shit. Like a lot, and you know, I think we had like a little mini sack, like not a full rucksack, but all that shit, like it's a lot of work. So we were running around and
all these video game
they made
guys.
us all these like overweight video game nerds, and they were teaching us tactics, and then on we were there for 2 days because we were there for one day. We learned all these tactics. They were kind of showing us all these things. And then we actually had to stay the night, overnight, in our own tents.
Oh.
And then they forced us, and I say forced us because probably didn't really need to, but I guess to emulate what Army guys would go through, we had to, there were like 4 of us to a squad, and there were like I don't know, maybe like 12 or 16 of us. Mm-hmm. And one person had to rotate for watch. So like 3 people would sleep and one person stayed up for like an hour or 2, and then you would go wake up another person, and then they would go stay up and for an hour or 2, and then you go in and got sleep. So they were trying to sleep deprive us.
That sucks.
And then the next day, which was kind of funny because they made us shave, and I was like, wait, what?
I did not sign up for that.
Yeah, and so we had to shave using like outdoor stuff. What? And it sucked because like there was no hot water or whatever. But as part of our breakfast, we had the MREs.
That's when you ate the lasagna for breakfast?
Yeah, for breakfast. Well, because there were other options there, but it's like you just need nutrition at that point because we were out running all day. We were just doing a bunch of stuff. And like, I mean, when we got to eat in the evening, like it's like the best meal you've ever had.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because you're so hungry and you're running around, you're doing all these things. And like your neck's all heavy and like stuff like that.
Everything hurts.
Everything hurts, especially when you're, not in shape. I mean, granted, I was like 24, 25. So like, I was probably in what was going to be the best shape of my life. But we had those MREs, and I remember because they told us to be very careful with them because like, so the MREs come in that like in a bag, and then there's like smaller bags within that bag. Okay. Turns out that the main bag is kind of like your pot because it comes with like a super hot solution, sort of like a fizzy thing that you drop in there, and it like makes the water like beyond boiling hot, like scalding hot. And so you have to be very careful. And so then you drop the other packets into the boiling water. So it's effectively a sous vide. Like that's basically what it is doing, right? It's sous videing the food that's in there and finishing it out. It's all air packed. But I have to say that lasagna was pretty fucking good. Like I was kind of surprised, and we were all talking about it after the fact. We were like, are all MREs this good? Or is it like
you got
the good ones for us because you felt bad? And they were like, no, MREs are like actually made to be really good.
Oh, that's good.
And I was like, that's interesting. And then it even had garlic bread in a separate thing. We're like, oh, that's really interesting. We found out like a couple days later, though, when we asked, we're like, well, wait a minute. I feel a little weird because all MREs, at least my understanding is, they are made to kind of block you up and so that you don't have to poop when you're out in battle.
Yeah.
You kind of hold it because it's got whatever the opposite of fiber is.
So they do that on purpose?
Yeah, it's absolutely done on purpose. So like you're peeing a lot because of your water, but that way you don't have to like poop when you're out in the battlefield. The MREs are kind of designed to sort of back you up for not like too long.
Sure.
Like
just long enough
to hopefully not be in a couple day battle, you know. Like hopefully you're by a toilet somewhere after like
find something
after
safer.
like day 2 or 3 or whatever. And that's why a lot of us were like, oh, I feel so bloated. Like I just
hurts.
like it, but I can't go to the bathroom. It's like, oh yeah, you're all plugged up. Like all you guys.
Hey, excuse me, Sarge. My tum-tum hurts.
Yeah, my tum-tums. They don't feel so good, and I can't make the poopies.
I gotta go home.
But yeah, so like I said, it had to be good. That was pretty good. I think there was also somebody had a chili mac.
Oh.
And they were actually, and then like some of them had brownies. And you could tell those brownies were like delicious, but that's probably what's backing you up. Like they were like very, very dense, like, and also like they have to last like a really long time, you know?
Yeah.
But I was surprised like how well they were done. And it made me, I don't remember all the specifics now, but I remember like after doing that, I went and researched like how do MREs get made? Because it seems like, is there a real chef and all that? Yeah. And it's like a whole thing.
Yeah, it's really, a whole production, I'm sure.
It's really neat. Yeah. Like it's a really cool sort of like process they kind of go through. But so I'm going to go with a lasagna MRE.
That was specifically the lasagna.
Yeah, the lasagna one, because I had it and I know what it tasted like, you know, and probably just some water, you know, because you kind of need that.
You need to stay hydrated.
You got to stay hydrated, especially with a movie like this. Yeah. But Do you have any thoughts? I mean,
kind of a gimme, but like, good old American cheeseburger, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of a pretty simple one. I don't know that I would have an appetite to eat it while watching
that
this
was
movie.
the only other thing I was going to say, right? It's like
that would be rough.
Outside of that, I was thinking like a Snickers bar or
just something easy.
Something that's got to be on the go that just gives you enough calories
to just get through it.
Yeah, because I think just coming upon the sound of gunfire in the United States in a battle zone would make you'd burn all those calories almost
from
instantaneously.
Yeah,
just even thinking about it.
Yeah.
But
I'll be on like a big fasting diet. I think if that actually did happen. But
yeah, I mean, outside of that, I was thinking like something DC based, but I don't know. There's so many. There's a variety of foods like in DC.
Huge.
I guess
super multicultural.
Yeah, because like when I was up in that area, when I used to work, kind of up that way. I mean, surprisingly, I remember asking. I was like, "So what's like the, Texas has barbecue. What is it here in Maryland and Virginia?" And nobody had a really
definitive answer.
No, not really. They were like, "We have great pizza and."
Yeah.
This and that and whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, well, because I was expecting like, lobster or, or a thing or like something that was called out, but nobody really had one.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well,
And I think, DC is also very international.
DC is super international. But I think just that whole area, right? Like the Maryland, Baltimore, like kind of, centralized area. I don't know. I mean, I would like to go back there at some point. Maybe we can like head up there before the battle ensues. Hopefully not.
I don't know. In the next 4 years, it's gonna be rough.
Yeah, but to just kind of try some of the cuisine up there. I think it'd be kind of interesting to see. But it also reminds me of House of Cards, and they were always eating steak and.
Oh, that's so funny.
Like you know what I mean?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Like a very sit down.
Yeah.
Fancy-ish kind of dinner, sort of thing. So. Oh boy. Well, I think we can close the to-go order list on this one.
We should have one message at least: to go out and fucking vote. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, do that better.
Local elections also matter.
Also, yeah. And go out and do that next time because we kind of fucked it up.
Good job, everybody.
But hey, it is what it is. But so with us being in the new year, I will say that give us a review or like and comment.
Hit like and subscribe.
Yeah,
maybe that notification button.
Tell us what you feel about Civil War.
I'm not going to read any of the comments.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But no, for real, like, if there's, Denise and I really enjoy doing this. I feel like these are the conversations that we would always have anyways. We just now decided to record them for ourselves. And if we're the only two that are listening, that's fine.
That's fine.
But at the end of the day, like, if you like what you're hearing, like, we'd love to hear maybe some movies that, we haven't talked about yet that you guys could suggest to us. We have some thoughts and plans for some dinner sort of tie-ins that we want to try later in the year to certain movies. So we may try some of that. But yeah, if there's like a meal or something that we haven't talked about, maybe we can crack open that
Vincent Price.
The Vincent Price cookbook, and maybe we can pick something out of there to pair with
one of my very prized possessions.
Yeah, maybe we can cook something up from there and pair it with a movie. But you can also follow us on Instagram. It's Top Shelf Video TX, and TopShelfVideo.com. We are like the subset of. We are the sidecast to the
Top Shelf Video.
The flagship Top Shelf, and we also have an email now.
Fancy.
It is topshelfvideopodcast@gmail.com. That'll also come to us, but you can maybe just make it attention film to table, and we can do that. But yes, it's going to be a nutty 4 years, but I think movies and food are going to kind of help us get through that. Cats and dogs and I mean, they're living together with us, so there's no reason why we can't make it to the next 4 years. I'm sure it'll be fine. Well,
it's so optimistic.
It's all relative, right? We'll look back at this in 4 years and we'll all have a big laugh.
Hopefully still in the country.
Yeah. So, so do those things and hit the buttons and all the stuff. And we're going to close up shop and put up the dishware for this week. And we will talk to everybody next time.
We kind of worked on that closing.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Oh, well.
Someday.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Love you.
Love you.